Even if you're not, I already pressed it. So here we go. Well, thank you for being here. The topic today is success. What does success look like to you? What does it mean to you? And if you do a Google search on success, you can find, I didn't look at the number, but hundreds of thousands of quotes, of books, of topics that people have written and talked about. But the truth about success is it's very individualized. What success looks like to Royal is not going to be the same as what it looks like to Alan. There may be some similar crossovers, maybe a lot of similarities, but we all have our own definition of success. And you have likely found this, that and I'll just apply it to myself because I've done this, when I compare my success to someone else's, it can go both ways. It could be someone who's way more successful. If I'm comparing it in a way that's like judgmental, I'm going to feel small and feel like I have totally failed. And I can compare it to someone who's like really struggling and like, wow, I've come a long way. And we can use that comparison and just like, oh, this is what I aspire to, but not necessarily to judge, where we are. But anyway, whole other topic. But so let's focus. I don't want to take a lot of time talking about this. I want to just discuss this. So who would like to start with answering the question, what does success look like to you? And granted, I think it evolves over time, right? What success looked like to me as an elementary school kid was very different than what it looks like to me now. My priorities shift at different times. They ebb and flow. Well, not my core priorities, but what I'm aspiring towards. So what is success to you?
I think for me, my definition of success is, am I achieving the goals that I've set for myself? My goals are my goals, and if I'm hitting them, I feel successful.
I like that. So
I once heard that the definition of that success is much like Deb described it. Success is different for each and every individual, and even different at different seasons within our lives or different areas of our life. But failure is the same for all of us. Failure is the inability for us to reach our goals and objectives in any area of our lives. So success has a lot of definitions, but failure is just that inability to reach those goals or objectives.
And we could talk about failure too.
I think we should.
Failure, let's talk about it. Failure could be the inability, but it could also be a stepping stone. Like it could be exactly what needs to happen. You go down a dead end and you feel like it's a failure, but that gives me a clue that, okay, that is not where I need to be. And now I know this other path that I'm on now is the path. So there's so many ways so many ways we can interpret it and see it. And there's no right or wrong. We're not here to prove one way or another, but what is it to you? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Royal, what's on your mind?
You talked about failure. One of the best examples that I've learned, I was on a training, and he talked about goals and how goal setting can be, to some people, very defeating, and you can feel lousy because you don't accomplish all the things that you want, right? You set 10 goals and you accomplish 9 of them, and you're like, well, that's horrible. Like, I must be a horrible person, right? And so it can actually work against us. And I love the analogy he shared where setting goals should be like a high jumper, where we set the bar to the next level that we're going to accomplish, but we don't beat ourselves up because the first time we try, we knock the bar over, right? We are now stretching beyond what we've ever done before. We're moving to a new unknown, beyond our abilities, and don't beat ourselves up because it doesn't happen. Try number 1. It might take 3 years. It might take 3 tries. We don't know, but that is our next level. And we will go until it happens because we're supposed to do it. And so it might not happen when you think or expect, but as long as you set that as your next goal and you keep working until, then you're
I-
successful.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I love that. Set the bar high. Set the bar high to be striving to that, not necessarily like, dang, I failed because I knocked the bar over. And then also to bring in Deb's perspective of, yeah, we do feel that success when we accomplish what we have. You know, we keep striving towards that goal, and eventually we do jump over the bar without knocking it over, and we land without breaking a leg or spraining an ankle. It's like, yes, that felt successful. So it's like there's so many ways to look at that, and there are different ways that it drives us and motivates us. So Alan, I would love to hear your thoughts on this.
So I'm currently trying to reevaluate what my definition of success is right now. Royal knows a bit about my story, and it's been a difficult path for me, especially the past few years, as I'm sure many people have gone through. So yeah, I'm honestly, I was coming to this meeting excited to kind of learn, kind of reevaluate what success means to me, because if I'm being frank, I don't feel very successful at all. And so I feel like success has been eluding me, and I'm trying to figure out the secret to be successful, and so that's why I'm currently just, yeah, an open book, trying to learn as much as I can to and being okay with the little things. That's something that's been important for me. Is It's been recognizing the little good steps, and rejoicing over the small things that have happened towards my goal, or reaching my goals. That's where if I'm able to kind of, take some of these small steps, I feel a bit more successful than I did before. Like I said, I'm still learning, because right now I'm in a very unique situation right now.
Alan, thank you so much for opening up and sharing that. That's not easy to say. It's not easy to admit, like, hey, I'm still reevaluating what that means for me. It's not easy to admit you don't feel that success. So thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And I think as you share that, it helps us feel like, and remember that, it gives us an opportunity to open up as well and share. We've all felt that way. Has anyone ever felt like you're unsuccessful? Raise your hand. Yeah, and I'm sure Deb and Lane.
Oh,
I know, Lane. I'm assuming Deb. I don't know. You're human, so yeah. There you go. Thumbs up. And I want to touch on what you said on celebrating the baby steps, the little steps, because there's something about the energy that we move forward with. And you're in this group as a business owner, as an entrepreneur. We are kind of the crazy people that are just like, oh my gosh, here's this big vision of what I want to do. And here I am on my journey, this little dot. And you get to this mountain and you're like, okay, I got it here. And you're like, oh, but there's so much more to go. And we just continue and we continue. But what happens when we're moving forward in that energy of like, okay, now I have to go here and now I have to go here and I'm never quite there, is it's emotional, right? We go through these hurdles, it's stressful, we fall, we bruise, we have failures. And those emotions anchor us to the past. They anchor us to those pain points. And then we start feeling like I'm not making any progress. So as you, Alan, I would challenge you and Royal and Deb, myself and Lane included, and anyone listening to the replay, to just imagine like you're turning back and looking on your journey in life, Alan, and look back and see what you have overcome. And I promise you that if you start listing those wins, start with the last week. What are my wins? I woke up happy. That's a win, big and small. When you start doing that, it'll figuratively cut off those emotional anchors to like the past failures. And it will free that so that you can turn around and say, all right, with this new energy of I have success, I have lived a life of successes. And even if you have to go back so far to the fact that you learned how to walk and talk, Alan, That tells you that you know how to fall on your butt and get back up again and keep going, right? But we forget that. We forget to celebrate those baby steps when we skin our knee and get up again, because we feel like, well, success equals I'm laughing at my this up there. Success equals, being there, and there always grows. Like as soon as you get there, there's the next level and the next level. So we always feel like, oh, I'm just never going to be there. It doesn't matter how much money you make or how much success you have. There's always the next level. So it's easy to feel like we've never succeeded. So look back. Just like, I think you already felt this to look back, but I challenge you to write it down. Write down your list.
I really like that, and I think that's a very, very good thing, because as human beings, we tend to focus on the negative more than we do the positive. And that's why anytime you give somebody feedback, they recommend, say 3 nice things and then the 1 negative thing. It's harder to remember the wins than it is to think of all the mistakes or the failures we've made. So I really like that, and I appreciate that.
You're
I think
so
that's fantastic
welcome.
insight.
You are so
I have a
welcome.
question, and I'll be back on video in just a second. Oh, hang on one second.
Hello, your deposit is going through. Anything else for today?
Oh, that's good. Thanks.
Have a nice day.
So what has been, if you're open to sharing, Alan, what has been the toughest thing about being Alan over the last 2 or 3, 4 years? It sounds like a lot of ups and downs over the last, over that period. What would you say has been toughest about being you?
I'm not quite sure how to answer that, because
Whatever comes to your heart.
I try to focus on the positive. I mean, I can make a list of things. I don't want people to say, poor pity me, or to throw like, hey, oh, Alan's been through this, XYZ, whatever. I'm really trying to focus on the positive and kind of not dwell on the negative things, because my negative, as kind of Charity says, my negative does not define who I am or where I'm going. It was a part of me. It's now in the past. I'm still in the growing phase from these very, 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 very hard trials that I've gone through. But I guess my I don't know. I don't want to be defined by my past and my failures. I'd rather be defined by my future and my positivity and successes.
I love that, and that makes perfect sense. And you're in good company here, because I don't know of anybody on this call, either this week or in previous calls, that are dwelling on their past. Because as you said, there are lessons to be learned from going through our life experiences. And sometimes it's just learning where we don't want to go, what we don't want to be, who we don't want to be. So given that, and just thinking about success going forward, most people that I know think about success as incremental. Royal, I loved your example. Track and field was my, that and football were my, you and I have talked about this in high school, that, that was it, right? And that's what we lived for. And so in the high jump, you can raise that bar, a quarter of an inch, a half an inch, 3/4 of an inch, an inch down to that level. And if you've cleared 5 feet 6 inches and you put it at 5 feet 6 inches and a quarter, you keep trying that until your skills get there. There's another philosophy that I've also been introduced to a few times in my life, and just even within the last 6 months, which is more of a quantum leap type of progression. And that in most cases we progress gradually and we get to the next level, but I've also seen guys in the high jump that were kind of stuck at, 5 feet 6 inches for quite some time. And they raised the bar to 5 feet 6.25 inches, and they clear it by 2 inches. They go over it, and it was like 5'8". If they'd had the bar at 5'8", they would have gone over. And clearly it's the training, it's the practice, it's the technique, and all of that. And sometimes it's just the belief, and sometimes it's not even really thinking about it. It's like, okay, I've raised the bar, here I go. But we're able to make a quantum leap. And so, not to keep the whole call focused on you, Alan, but you did bring up some really interesting concepts. But for you, as you're redefining success, what is one thing that you're pretty clear on right now, that for your next level, or for some of your next steps, what is one thing that looks like success to you? I'd just be real interested in hearing kind of what's been going through your mind, and what you do have clarity on right now.
To be honest, there's quite a bit up in the air. I'm still right now trying to deal with fallout with some of the trials I've had to go through, and I've tried. I mean, some business stuff. A lot of it's just very, very personal. Some stuff that's been going on. But on the business side, I spent. That's something I do feel comfortable talking about. I spent probably about 6-7 months developing this really exciting card game that I enjoyed. And I got it all. I made the beta test, or made the thing from scratch. I did all the design work. I made all the rules up. I created this, what I thought was going to be pretty fun. Then I decided to get it play tested. I got all sorts. I got patents for this. I've got all this stuff ready, and went ahead and did a Kickstarter campaign, and it flopped. Just absolutely flopped. Didn't get anywhere near the amount I needed to make it a reality. So when it did flop, I had kind of two choices. I could sit and dwell on my failure. It was a failure, and that's okay. Failure, it is okay to fail, because it's what you learn about it, and you move forward, and that's what makes it less of a failure, I guess. It becomes a learning experience. This was a very expensive learning experience, but anyways, I guess one of the hurdles that I right now that I'm trying to think of is, like, instead of taking this on a Kickstarter level, I'm now reaching out to publishers and saying, okay, is this something, because I've invested a lot of time, effort, and money into this particular card game. It's a family card game. And instead of just giving up on it and say, well, it just failed, and it's done. Coming up with different strategies. Obviously, it's not my main focus, but just coming up with different ways to take what I've learned and turn it into a positive, and still, without just saying, hey, I give up. This is pointless. I gave it my best shot, which I did. I did give it my best shot. Just to keep going. Because I don't want to give up. I'm not someone who gives up easily. And so that's just been my whole thing right now with my marketing business. I'm kind of in the do or die scenario right now. I need to get some customers. If I don't, my life as an entrepreneur will be short-lived. And so it's a matter of saying, okay, what is the problem? Okay, finding out the steps that do work, and trying to figure out the steps that do work, because that's where I'm at right now. But yeah, it's a process, and it's one of the things that's been most important to me is conquering the mindset. And because I cannot dwell on the past. I mean, I had somebody come over and say, well, Alan, if it wasn't for the fact that you still have your kids, I mean, I consider you more like Job. You know, actually had somebody tell me that. A religious leader of mine actually tell me that. It was kind of interesting. And so, you know what, I can be a victim. I can sit and say, you know, all of this is frustrating and this whatever, but I'm not going to think that way. I'm not going to be that way. The only path forward is to keep going forward. It's to keep celebrating the little wins so that I can mentally keep going. It's learning from my mistakes that I have made, and it's just taking one step in front of one of the other every single day, trying to do at least 1% better every day, just to try to keep going towards my goals. That's what's keeping me motivated. That and my kids. So that's a very roundabout of answering your question, but it just gives you kind of a bit more background on kind of what I'm
No,
doing
it
at the moment.
really does. And you have right now a minimum of 2 pathways to success. There's the potential of success with your card game, and there's potential of success in your marketing business. And, you know, heaven knows that every business needs help with marketing. And also, there are many card games and board games out there that have been wildly successful if they just get introduced, you know, through the right the right channel at the right time. So who's to say that won't be wildly successful at the right time through the right channel, and say that you won't find the right clients or the right fit for your marketing. I know one of the things that Charity is really a master at is helping in any business, whether it's a marketing business or a product business or a other service business, you know, come up with really what is their market dominating position. And you probably know quite a bit about that, being in the marketing business. But Charity, do you have any questions that come to mind for Alan, just in terms of what differentiates him from, you know, all of the myriad of marketing companies that are out there, and really what's his market dominating position? I'm just thinking you might have a question on your mind that could kind of help all of us understand better where his focus is and what he does best.
Well, that is a great question. I think it's not one that is going to take one question. I'd be happy to get on a call with you, Alan, and dive into this if you'd like, if you're interested.
That'd be great.
The thought that was on my mind, so maybe you did have that, see that look in my eye, is I've got a friend who created a board game. I don't know where he is on that journey, but sometimes it's nice to talk to somebody who's on the same path. You know, you've got a card game, he's got a board game. If you're interested, I could just put you in contact and you guys can collaborate if you want and see what happens. Because it's just nice to feel like, okay, you get it. You get where I am, and oh, you've done that. Let's do this and let's put it together. And, you know, maybe you both have the missing piece that each other needs. So I'd be happy to put you in contact with my friend. And then also I'll send you my calendar link. If you're interested, you're welcome to hop on my calendar, and we can talk about your marketing business. We can talk about whatever you'd like. I'm happy to offer that.
That's very kind of you. And actually, I'd love to take you up on that. Thank you, Charity.
Okay, sounds good. And Lane, thanks for bringing that up. That's what we're here for. We'll connect each other and just help each other out. So, because that's a whole other discussion. So bringing it back to what is success for you, I've been thinking about that, because there is an element of like, yes, I've achieved these goals, you know, or I want to achieve these goals. That makes me feel good. Or even my to-do list, checking it off, like, yes, you know, that feels like success. Or striving, like Royal had said, or celebrating the wins in the past, like Alan had said. I think there's many elements to that. And as I was considering what my answer would be, and I think like you, Alan, it's I continuously kind of refine and reevaluate that. But I was just thinking, like, so for my success, it would be, what is my relationship with myself? How am I treating myself? How am I treating my loved ones? And I know sometimes we cannot control, and we never can control how other people behave, or how sometimes relationships can be a challenge. But like, what is my role in this? So I look at relationships. I look at my connection to my Father in heaven. I look at my connection just with those around me. Like, am I so focused on my business that I can't see past my eyeballs and see the person right next to me who needs something? I feel like it's a success for me when I am connecting with others and just really tuning into them, because then I always learn something that I can take and either add to my business or use to improve my relationships. So the question that comes to mind, have you guys seen, do you know what the Wheel of Life is? Have you ever heard of that? Royals, they're typing it up. Are you going to do a
I
search?
haven't.
I saw
I
your
haven't.
arms move. What did you say, Lane?
I haven't either.
Okay, so the Wheel of Life is a really good gauge for just to kind of see where you are. And there is just a wheel, and it's got rings, like, concentric rings, and you've got career, financial, spiritual, physical, intellectual, family, and social. And we've heard these categories. It's not anything new or groundbreaking, but here's kind of what it looks like. So each ring is, from the center out, you're like at a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you just kind of go like, on my spiritual level, where am I on that? Am I where I want to be? And a number might come to mind, or you might be like, yeah, I'm totally sucking at that. So I'm going to just put a dot in the center for the spiritual, financial, career-wise, social, family, and physical, intellectual. And you can even change those. Maybe intellectual doesn't like ring a bell to you. Like, maybe you would say it other way, like educationally or whatever, you can change that. But this is a really good gauge to put it on paper and go, oh, okay, that's where I am. And I feel like this is the area, or these are the areas that I want to work on, and then you set the bar and you work towards it. Because here's the thing. When we are sitting here talking about the success and thinking about our failures and all this, when it's in here, it feels big. When it's in here, it's like, there's nothing I can do, and it feels overwhelming. But once you get it out of your head and put it on paper, then you can go, okay, I can start putting together a plan. I can decide what is my next step in this area that I need to do, and then you can start working towards that. But if it's just in your head, and there's other tools, this isn't the only tool. I'm sure you guys have tools that you've used or like to use, but that's one thing. I'll put it in the email when we send the replay of, that might be a good tool for you to look at and evaluate, get it out of your head, and then decide, okay, what is my next step towards that success, whatever that is to you. Does that make sense?
No, that's really good. And I'm glad you showed that, Charity, because I have seen other tools similar to that. And it's interesting. I just was meeting with a new client this morning that we just got started, and we began the conversation around what are your objectives for this time that we're going to be working together. And he said, man, I've got so many of them, and I'm not even quite sure where to start. And I said, well, that's why we're meeting, and I'll ask you questions to prompt you, but I said, let's start by breaking them down into categories. And so literally what you just went through, I said, so what's a physical goal, just in terms of your personal, nutrition or fitness or exercise or your weight, or, anything along the lines of your health, what's a physical goal? And then we went through financial and relationships and spiritual. And I think there are one or two others that he came up with. And so that really is a good way, to say, rather than I'm just a failure everywhere, it's like, okay, I'm succeeding here and here. Now, how do I take that forward and succeed in other areas? And I can't remember who mentioned it earlier. I think it might have been you, Charity, that when I think of my failures that I have had, and you know that I've had some pretty large ones. One of the ones that comes to mind is my largest financial failure. And this was back a number of years ago. I got into the franchise world, and I think at the end of the day, between my own cash that I had saved, my own savings that I put into it, and then I had an SBA loan, small business loan, and then I also borrowed some money from a friend who owned a leasing company. And by the time we had the business all up and running and going, I had 2 locations and was just super excited about it. And I was about a little over $200,000 in debt. And 2 years later, by the time it was all said and done and I sold it, I still owed a little more than $200,000. We basically barely lived off of it, but didn't make a lot of money. And we just found out that we just figured out we were not going to be successful. And I had 2 choices. I could either take out bankruptcy, or I could go back into the corporate world, which is where I came from, and talk to my creditors and put together a payment plan, even if it took me the rest of my life, which is the choice I ended up taking. And it ended up taking a little over 10 years to get that all paid back. And so I could have been really bitter, really angry. I could have just, withdrawn from the world and said, I'm never going to take a chance, never going to do that again. But looking back on that, I won't say that I'm glad that it happened. I would much rather it have turned out and been a wild success. But the lessons that I learned there by taking on that business made it possible for me to have a meaningful business conversation with anyone at any level. And I ended up going back into the corporate world, moved into the executive ranks, and actually enhanced my career working in the corporate world well beyond where I would have ever gone if I hadn't stepped out and taken that risk. And so it took me to get that paid back. But I just look at the lessons learned, and I don't know how I could have learned those in any other way. So my failures that I've had, I can't think of one of them where I haven't learned really valuable lessons that have helped me to build success in the future.
I love that. Thank you, Lane. I have 2 questions I want to leave with you, and then I want to dive deeper into just kind of another angle of this. So my husband and I do a lot of real estate development, and there's a pretty gargantuan project for us. And this is like, we felt good about it. We're moving forward. And here's the 2 questions when it comes to like moving towards something that we ask ourselves. It's like, okay, what is the worst case? When we start getting afraid, we're afraid, like, I don't know if okay, what's the worst thing that can happen? It's like, well, I guess we could go bankrupt, lose everything, end up in a tent on the right side of the road. Okay, that's not likely going to happen. But like, so you just allow yourself to think, okay, what's the worst case scenario here? And then, can I live with that? Like, well, yeah, we both grew up in poverty. Okay, yeah. I mean, I know we will be okay. I don't want it to happen, but it'll be okay. So when it comes to moving towards business, that kind of relieves a lot of, not relieves it, it's just like gets it out of my head. Like, oh, this is the worst case that I'm feeling the fear of. It'll be okay. And that's not likely going to happen anyway. So just wanted to share that. So now I want to shift into diving deeper into, okay, there's the nuts and bolts of success and goal setting and achieving and all that, which is good stuff. Let's shift over to, what is it that you want to feel every day? Because people in marketing, Alan, you probably know this, like people buy based on emotion. They will buy if you fix that emotional hot button. What is that emotion that they need fixed? But what is that emotion that we want? What do you want to feel? So if you think about like, okay, in the end, I just want to wake up and feel, what is that feeling that you're after in your life? Let's talk about that.
So are we talking about me personally or the feeling I'm trying to convey to my
You.
customers?
You personally. We can talk about marketing later. But good question.
The feeling that I want to feel like when I wake up, honestly, is peace. I want to feel like things are, yeah, just peace.
I love that.
Yeah.
I hear that a lot, is that, when you ask people what they want, peace comes up often. And for me, the word is joy. That's really, the choice I make every day is, what am I doing so that I might feel joy? And if I have a choice to feel other than that, what's preventing me from choosing joy?
Those are great questions. Royal, what about you?
So peace was just like Alan, peace was the first word that came to mind. And as Lane shared, there's been a recurring statement that I've heard recently, which is joy in the journey. And the other one, that we should be enjoying what we're learning, and it's not always easy. I was visiting with my business partner just yesterday, and I made a statement. I said, I'm at peace, but it's not peaceful. And he said, I haven't heard that before.
Good.
But it is possible to have crazy stuff going on in your life and be at peace. And it's such a wonderful thing. And as I've been studying recently, it really is around this life wasn't meant to be easy and a piece of cake and it just, success just shows up. We are supposed to go through hard things and learn from those and become and be molded and shaped and become what we're supposed to become. And that doesn't happen through just ease and luxury and entertainment and just cruising through life. So yeah, that's been on my mind a lot recently, where what am I learning? What can I learn from what I'm going through? What am I becoming? And I appreciate, Charity, what you shared of looking back. There's a lot of peace from looking back and saying, hey, I've done hard things. I've been through that. I've been through other things. I'm now in a different journey at a different point. What am I supposed to learn from this?
I love that. You're just learning to walk in new ways continuously, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
There's
I
a
love
quote
how
I
you
like to-
said it's who you're becoming. It's not what you're overcoming, it's who you're becoming. Alan, what were you gonna say?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, it's okay.
I was saying there's a quote that I have on my whiteboard that I look at every day, that I heard from, I can't remember, one of the motivational talks I was listening to. And it said, everyone should become a millionaire because of what it will make of you to achieve it.
I love
And
that.
just going through this process, because again, I love what you said, Royal, because that's exactly, we don't learn to be the kind of people we need to be without going through these trials and challenges and overcoming them to get it.
That's all. I love that. I love that quote. I would love to hear what Deb is thinking. That is her emotion, her feeling.
So I really like the, peace and joy. One of the things that I thought maybe I could add to that is I'd love to feel kind of that hopeful and engaged in life with a solid optimism when I wake up in the morning. Like this day can be better.
That's awesome. Optimism, feeling optimistic, feeling hopeful. That's super cool.
I love that. If there's a story that comes to mind, it's going to make me emotionally, but I think it is, just take a deep breath. So thinking about having joy in the journey amid these trials and the chaos, and even as we're striving for success, and even as we're trying to define success, I think of, so 10, 12 years ago now, my baby brother, he was 15 and he committed suicide. And I remember my family getting together and my sister, it was like a week before Christmas. So then a week later, we had just buried him. We got together for with a family. And we were just like avoiding eye contact, all in a circle for a Christmas party that we had already had planned, just avoiding eye contact. Like, this sucks. Like, there's no reason to be happy here. You know, we want him here so badly and we're hurting and our hearts are just so broken. And my sister said, and you could just tell she was struggling to say it, like she didn't want to say it, but she said, "What have you guys learned from this?" And my first reaction was like, how dare you ask such an insensitive question? That's how I was responding that inside. Like, there's nothing to learn here, right? I just want him here. But then as we started opening up and sharing about that, there were amazing things that happened with the dynamics of my family. It just like cracked open the dynamics of our family. And 10 years later, 12 years later, it's been, my family's in a way different, way better place than we were at that point. And even before that point, we were quite dysfunctional as a family. And so just looking at the lessons in our family and then talking about things that are hard. And then also another thing I've learned is we don't dwell on the past, right? And the heartbreak and trials we've been through, it's still okay to feel it. Like, there were times it just little smacked me upside the gut. And it's like, oh my gosh, I want him here. And I mourn that. And so I've learned to just, okay, if I can, sometimes I have to put it off because it's like, oh, okay, I got to kind of take care of my kids right now. And then later today, I'm going to set the timer for 20 minutes and just like ugly cry it all out. It's okay to feel what you're feeling. And actually, it's very important. And crying is just spring cleaning for the heart, mind, and soul, and gives you a good reset. So just setting the timer, let it cry out. I usually don't take 20 minutes because it's when you're resisting, like, oh, I don't want to feel this. I want to just focus on that. Then it lasts all day long or weeks, right? But if I'm just like, I'm focusing on feeling sorry for myself, I'm going to have a pity party. I am just going to cry and just like, look, my life sucks. Heavenly Father, why would you let this happen? But then when you give yourself space to feel it, that allows you to move through it so that you can heal it. And then you can look back and celebrate your wins. And then you can look back and see the lessons. And then you can snip those emotional anchors that are holding you back so you can move forward with the energy of success. And like you guys have said, choose joy. It is a choice, choosing joy in the journey. And it's a skill set, I would say. It's a skill to be able to choose live after the manner of happiness rather than striving to be happy, even amid the chaos. So that's kind of what came to mind as you guys were sharing that. Sorry, that was a big one to unload, but
thank you, Charity, for sharing that. I thank you for being vulnerable enough and share that, because that's something that is very important. And it's something that I have not been doing. So it's something that you try to just avoid it because you try to be the strong one. You try to be the, whatever your situation, requires it to be. But thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome, Alan.
Yeah, this is one of, Alan, and I'm sure you and Deb have figured out why Royal likes to join us every 2 weeks as well as others, is that it is a place that we've really tried to create a safe place here where people do feel comfortable, sharing really what's going on in their lives. And, this topic of peace and joy and happiness and, optimism, whatever it is that we're wanting to feel, it really is a skill set, and it is a choice. It doesn't guarantee that we feel that way all the time. And even what Royal said about, peace, is that we can feel peace even when, you know, kind of everything in the world around us is not going well. I write short poems from time to time when thoughts come to my mind, and it's, you know, I would call it a gift, or I don't know, call it inspiration or whatever. But a couple of weeks ago, I was thinking about this topic of joy, and you know, I can choose joy, or I can choose something other than that. And what came to me is a title called Over Joy. And these are the words that came: choose joy, be joy, enjoy, rejoice. Joyful, joy us, finding joy is a choice. Choose happiness, elation, jubilation, and glee, fulfillment, ebullience, which is another word for joy, rapture, and ecstasy. And so whenever I'm not feeling joy during the day, I will pull up that little poem and read through it and ask myself, what's preventing me from choosing joy? And that tends to kick me back into realizing that it is a choice. It's a skill set.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that, Lane, and welcome to LaTroy. LaTroy, we had a great discussion about what success means to us, and then also the feeling that we're striving for, you know, and you just heard the end of what Lane was sharing about choosing joy, and that being really a skill set, not necessarily something we're trying to get, but we live after that manner day to day. I would love to hear your thoughts on success, because you're kind of what stirred up this question in our last mastermind, where you asked Royal about, you know, what does success mean, and defining that. I can't remember what you said. I think it was in the chat. So I would love to hear your thoughts on what does success mean to you? What does it look like or feel like?
Thanks. I think that's a great question. It's a great starting point. For me, since it's called My Life, to stay in my own lane, since I can only experience myself. Now, this sounds very selfish, and it took me a while to understand this conversation, right? The place where I live and dwell, to understand the nature of my own mind is, what do I want to experience? And when I can actually increase that joy, that love in my own heart, then I have a lot to bring to the table, to my marriage, to my children, to my finances. But what do I want to experience while I'm here? And what am I willing to do to make it happen? Right? Against all odds, because once you step away, I believe once you step away from the crowd and you begin to go after that something more, right? You're going to begin to be misunderstood, ridiculed maybe. And it takes courage to go down that path, because everybody's going to try to pull you back to where they feel comfortable. And so I feel a lot of people don't move down that path. They don't choose to stay on the path towards the success. And I think it's a feeling that we're looking for, right? It's not so much the thing, but how it makes us feel. And it's the actual journey of it. This is where we feel most alive in our life. And so for me, I had these I'm a little ambitious a little bit, but I plan on, these are my intentions and these are my truths, that I will travel the world abroad, bring in these higher messages as I bring them to myself first, to people, that there's a better way to live. I will have many homes around the world, right? I will have an infallible marriage, this love that surrounds us. I will have honest conversations with myself and other people at all times, because the truth is the only constant. And I choose to stay in these places because this is what I want to experience, right? What I want, not what other people want from me, because I spent most of my life as a people pleaser. And that's not a very good win-win dynamic. So thanks for the question. It's a good question.
I love that. Thank you so much. I really appreciate, well, before does anybody have some thoughts in response to LaTroy? Royal or Alan or Deb or Lane?
I love your affirmation statement. I'm sure that's not all of it, but something that I have my own, just sitting on my whiteboard, I look at every single day and I repeat it every single time. You know, I feel frustrated. I feel tired. I feel like I want to give up. I feel like, and I just say that over and over and over again. So thanks for sharing that with us.
Yeah, thank you. I like how you said, I don't know how you said it. I want to go back and listen to the replay already of stay in my own lane. I can only experience, what did you say? I can only experience life the way from where, if I'm in my own body type. I can't remember how you said it.
We can only experience ourselves, right? Life is really subjective. The feelings, the thoughts, the emotions, everything that we're experiencing primarily and initially happens inside of us first, right? And then there's a reason the sensory apparatuses were put on the outside of our body to secondary experience the things outside of us. So it's just projecting outwardly what already took place inwardly inside of us. And when we could get better at learning what's going on inside this body we live in, I believe that's where the success journey actually starts. That's where the hero's journey actually starts. Right? Because I was showing up in my own life playing the villain for a very long time and trying to blame everybody else on the way my life was. But I was choosing it. I was choosing to be unsuccessful in my relationships and my finances and my fitness and all my endeavors. I was choosing that. And it wasn't a cookie I was ready to swallow. But now that I've chosen that, things have changed. The whole trajectory of my life has turned upside down.
I love that. And I
Yeah,
think,
that's
go
it's
ahead, Lane.
it's pretty brutal when we first come to that realization, right? Is I'm getting exactly what I deserve, what I
believe that I
need.
deserve.
I'm creating everything that is me and that I'm experiencing. When I met Charity's sister Rebecca, who was the woman that introduced me to Charity, we went through a workshop, 2-day workshop called Leadership from the Heart, and they gave us an assignment, and each of us were to come back and report on our assignment. And the very first person that stood up and reported, the facilitator said, thank you for sharing your results. You have chosen to fail. And then went on, and we're just all sitting there in shock, because whoever says that, right, especially in a workshop, you have chosen to fail. But that is one of the things that we learned. One of the lessons we all took away from that is that when we fail, it really is our choice, and it's probably lessons we needed to learn until we figure out that we can also choose different or better. So I'll stop there. I really don't have anything else to share today, Charity.
That's so good. And I think it's important to remember, I mean, that's why mindset work is so important, because it's those beliefs that create the choice. I mean, you wouldn't consciously go, oh, I want to go fail. But there's stuff inside that we don't realize that we've been programmed or conditioned to believe. We have set points for how much we feel like we can succeed and whatnot. So when you do the mindset work and you bust through that, that's like you said, LaTroy, it's like that's where the magic happens. That's where I am projecting the good stuff that's going on inside instead of these limiting beliefs that are going on inside. So we have power to choose. That's what we have as humans. So our time is up, and I just want to thank you all for being here today, for opening up and sharing what you've shared, and for being the kind of person that you are who shows up for other people, because I've seen that with each of you, and I can just sense that from you. But just make sure you show up for yourself, and make sure that when you're striving for success, whatever that means to you, that it's what you want and not what you think everybody thinks that you should want. You know what I mean? There's a difference there. And sometimes it's so subtle we don't recognize whose life we're living for. But keep up the good work, guys, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. If you have any questions, comments, or smart remarks, just reply to the emails. You know how to get a hold of us. And thank you so much. Appreciate you being here. Have a great week.
All right. See you, everybody. Great job, Charity. Thanks, everyone.